Hello and welcome to this video. If you're watching this video, it's because you have done the money type quiz. And if you haven't done the money type quiz, I'm going to share with you the link in a moment. But this video today is what are my money archetypes, your quiz results. So effectively about your money personality. So as I just mentioned, if you haven't done the quiz already, please go over to themindfulmoney.com and there you will be able to fill in the quiz, and then you can continue to watch this video and understand a bit more about your money type. So I wanted to tell you a bit about me. My name is Esther O'Brien. I'm also known as Esther the Investor because I do some investing too, and it rhymes. And I'm a certified professional money coach. I have studied with Deborah Price, and that's whose work this is based on. I have previously taught financial education within the financial services industry. I'm also a property investor, as I mentioned. I'm a former psychologist. I worked in mental health for many years. And I'm also a certified life coach and also certified in heart healing as well. And the combination of those things together, I think works really well for being a money coach. Oh, I've also been featured in Psychology's magazine as regards to money coaching. I forgot to mention that bit as well. So without further ado, let's move on. So why find out about your money types? Well, there's a really good reason, and that is because often when we are, in our financial situation, we may find that we find it difficult to change our financial situation, or that we create goals around our financial situation, and that we're not able to reach them, or we're not able to change behaviours, and then the same thing is happening over and over again. So you may find that, for example, each time you get a salary increase or you get a new job, you earn more money, but you still find that you don't have any money for whatever reason. You may still find that you're in debt and you can't seem to move away from that, or that you're someone who, for example, even when you earn more money, you still worry all the time about money and have a fear of spending it, or a fear of investing it. So you're not able to kind of change your position or enjoy the money that you have. So here we go. So fearful to invest. And it may be also, often we find that we have very different ideas about money to our partner. So we may be with somebody that wants to save and doesn't want to do anything that they consider to be frivolous or to consider it to be wasteful. And you might actually feel that what they think is frivolous and wasteful, you feel is actually just enjoying money and enjoying living, enjoying doing things that you want to do. And that may cause some disconnect or discord between you. So that's why it's really good to understand this. And as we know, understanding yourself is actually the key to growth in all areas. So I really like the saying that, getting conscious with your unconscious, it's actually the key to everything. So without further ado, let's start going through the money types. So there are 8 in all. Is that right? 8? Yes, 8 in all. The first one is the innocent. And the innocent, if you think about someone or something that's innocent, think about a baby's really innocent. Babies are very trusting, aren't they? They're very trusting. And innocent types can be quite fearful or anxious of anything to do with money. So they don't like to, they don't like to make decisions around it. So what can happen is that because of them being very trusting, is they can then devoid themselves of all responsibility and give it over to somebody else. So they might not want to make decisions, might not want to think about it, don't trust their own judgment, so will then trust someone else's. And that can be in terms of, maybe perhaps their partner or someone else in their life, but also when they perhaps go to buy something, could be a large thing. They don't sort of trust their own judgment around it, so might trust the salesperson and what they're saying without giving it too much thought, if that makes sense. So being very, very trusting, perhaps almost in a position that they could be a bit gullible. Because of these things, they tend to seek security. So, and that will often be with a partner they're with. They'll want them to take all the decisions, but also perhaps want to be looked after, and looking for that security elsewhere because they don't trust themselves to be able to provide it. So this creates financial dependence. And of course, what this does ultimately is it creates a feeling of powerlessness, and the person becomes really quite disempowered, because they've given all of that responsibility and power away. And it can be said that they have very much an ostrich approach, which an ostrich is very putting your head in the sand. So you probably know someone, or maybe yourself, that literally is kind of a bit like la la la, doesn't like to deal with financial situations, doesn't like to deal with anything like that. So sometimes what you'll see is when people they might get into debt, they will not open the envelopes, or with the innocent, they don't like opening bills, etc. I can remember many years ago for myself, one of the things that I used to do, this was like back in my uni days, I used to hate opening bills. I would just put them directly in the bin, which was obviously a tactic which wasn't very good, but and it doesn't work. And all it does is that saying, it just kicks the can down the road. So one of the really important things for the innocent is to be able to be able to tackle things head on, be able to take some of that responsibility. And one of the things that's really important is, in all areas of life, is the minute that you take responsibility for something, even if it's not your fault, you actually take your power back. Which brings us directly onto the next one, which is the victim. So the victim personality type is very much kind of someone who feels done to. They feel that they've had a hard time and it's not been their fault. I'm in debt because of this happened and that happened, and if those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am. And if only this person had done this, I would have been better off. They're very much prone to blaming other people. And like I said before, it's so important to take responsibility for yourself, and your actions and everything that's going on in your life, even if it's kind of not your fault. Because the minute that you take responsibility, you take control of the situation and you take your power back. And it's actually a much better place, than being, than having a, for want of a better word, having a pity party. And I always kind of think, when something bad happens, or something happens that you don't want, have a minute, 30 seconds or a minute to really complain and really feel that's not fair, this isn't right, da, 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 da. And then you need to move away from that, towards responsibility, because that way you'll open your mind to being able to find solutions. Gone off on a tangent there, but with the victim, they're also quite highly emotional, and because of this victimhood, can end up living in the past. So that this person did this, or this happened and I lost my job, and da da da, and all of these things have meant that I'd be in a different position. And because of that, again, it's that giving of the power away, which can lead to them being financially irresponsible, being disempowered, can be quite resentful of other people, envious of other people, unforgiving. And most of all, what this then creates is, if sitting around kind of, for want of a better word, I guess, complaining about, or not even complaining, but kind of, this belief that you've been wronged and that it's, none of it's your fault and that you've got no power, then creates a self-fulfilling prophecy going forward. So you're not, things aren't actually going to change at all, and then you then end up living out the self-fulfilling prophecy. So the thing that's really important for the victim is to be able to heal that's what happened within the past, and be able to really let it go, so they can move forward with their lives in all areas. Next is the fool, which is, you think about a fool, I always think, when I think of this one, I think of like a jester. But actually, if you've heard of the saying, a fool and his money are soon parted, and that's very much true for this one. So fools are generally, they are risk takers and gamblers, and there are some areas where this can work well. but it's done in a very undisciplined way. They're often quite restless, so find it difficult to be able to kind of rein themselves in. So always looking for the next thing. Have you heard of shiny penny syndrome? So they jump from thing to thing to thing, almost kind of like looking for that, I suppose, that dopamine hit. And the shiny penny syndrome often means that you just start stuff, but you don't finish it. So they might be someone who's always wanting to do more courses, always looking for the next quick buck, always looking for the next kind of scheme, if that makes sense, or the next business, without actually really seeing any of them through, and just have a kind of trail of, I always think of it like a bit of a trail of destruction after them. Very undisciplined, impulsive. You see where this is going, but highly optimistic, sort of a belief that things are going to turn out right, which if they can harness the other bits, the fools can actually end up being really great with money, but they have to rein themselves in on the other bits. Overly generous, I think that's not a terrible quality, being generous, is it? But I guess often doing it without thought to their own finances and where they're sitting. So have a plan for generosity. Very adventurous. I mean, they sound like they're great fun, don't they? Great fun to be around. And they live in the moment. So some of these, as I say, are really great attributes to have. But along with being a gambler, undisciplined, really impulsive, lends itself to often not having any strategy at all, which means they go around literally like a scattergun, shiny penny syndrome, and can really decimate their own finances, now and for the future by living that way. But if they can harness it and rein it in, they can actually be really, really great. And I'll explain more about that as we go along. So the martyr. When we think of a martyr, I always think of the martyrs in the in the Tudor times, when they were they had to convert. If you're not into your history, you might not know what I'm talking about. They had to convert to a different faith, and many of them wouldn't, so they were burnt at the stake. So no one's getting burnt at the stake here, but martyrs in terms of money and money types, they are people, they're often like the mum in the family, they're long suffering, they like to look after everyone else. They put their own needs last. They put everyone else's needs first, and this can not just be with money, but just in general within their lives. So always putting themselves last. Perfectionists, and then obviously putting yourself last all the time ends up creating resentment eventually, because where it comes from often is that, I guess, that need for seeking approval from others, and feel that you need to caretake, but then what it creates is a resentment, and that can then create being quite passive aggressive. But they're often very compassionate people because they are caretakers. Okay, hopefully all that kind of makes sense. So the creator artist. So let's have a think about it. So when we think about the poor struggling artist, this is kind of what we're referring to with this money type. So the poor struggling artist, they live for their work, but they're eating like a crust of bread because they can't, they don't get paid or whatever, or they don't get paid very much. And so with this money type, usually these people are highly creative or highly spiritual, and they're quite passive people. But because of this kind of being highly artistic and creative, they often really struggle with the intrinsic, that the value of money and how to manage it. And it all feels very icky to them, particularly the exchange of money. And so because of this, often what ends up happening is they don't like, if they're self-employed in some way, they don't like to charge for things. They feel very uncomfortable with it because they just want to create, they just want to give their stuff away for free. But actually the reality is you also do need to be able to make a living. Very non-materialistic people, and they have this internal conflict going on, as I said just now, about wanting to be really creative and to be able to share that creation with the world, but equally knowing that they need money, but not wanting to ask for the sale or to ask for money. They very much have a love-hate relationship with it. So moving on to the tyrant. Whenever I think of the tyrant, I actually think what pops up into my head, picture that pops up into my head is Donald Trump. So They tend to be quite controlling, usually very successful either in business or in corporate, very successful people with money. But the success that they have within business and financially often doesn't transcend to other parts of their lives. So they often may struggle with their relationships or with their family, etc., and with their own internal happiness. But they will seem to have it all going on in the financial area. So they can be, use money to manipulate, be very fearful of losing it. So what constantly happens is they hit one goal, they're on to the next goal and on to the next goal without ever really stopping to be able to enjoy what they have created and allowing others to enjoy it as well. And they can be quite oppressive, critical, judgmental because of that internal anxiety that's going on. Financially, can be quite aggressive, in what they're doing in terms of, what they're doing in business and investing, etc. And unforgiving of others, and often very secretive as well. So that is the tyrant. If you've got this one as yours, I'm not saying you're like Donald Trump. I'm just saying it's something I think of when I think about this. So let's move on to the next one. Oh, often highly materialistic. That's no surprise, is it? So the warrior. So there are actually two money types that really we want to be moving towards, and we want to try and emulate. And one's called the warrior, and one is called the magician. Now, I'm going to give you my example of what I think of. When I think of the warrior, I think of Mel Gibson in Braveheart. Now, you don't have to be Scottish or anything. It's just, I just think of a warrior. What's a warrior? They are very strong, they're driven, competitive, disciplined, they're strategic. They are, moving towards a goal. They're often very financially successful, confident, generous, rescuers. So, all of the words here are very positive. And if we think about a warrior with his money, there's someone that would be brave, and they would be strategic, and they would have a plan, and they would execute that plan in a disciplined way. So a really, really good, strong archetype to have and to want to work towards emulating. And then the other one, as I said, is the magician. And this is almost kind of like the spiritual side, if you like, to the other side of the coin of the warrior, which is they are much more sort of conscious and thoughtful, so mindful in themselves, very trusting of people. They're generous, they're optimistic about themselves, their lives, the future. They are confident in what they're doing with their money and compassionate. Unattached to the outcome. So I think one of the things that we hear a lot of the time is about being, when we get really caught up in a process and get caught up in a result, sometimes it can almost have an opposite, I suppose, result of what we're wanting to happen. And actually, if you can remain a little bit detached, a little bit unattached, just kind of have your plan and remain, keep checking in with it, but remain a little bit unattached, it can actually be more helpful. And I'm just talking about that in general areas of life. So rather than being caught up in your emotions, so, today I feel happy and driven, so I'm going to do the things I need to do, versus waking up the next day, I feel a bit tired and sad and a bit depressed, so I'm not going to do the things I need to do. Rather than being driven by our emotions, being driven by whatever our plan is. So I'm not talking about finance specifically here, but just anything in life really. So if you think about if you were going to be trying to get fit or get to a certain level of fitness, you have your plan, you have your daily method of operation, which would be, it might be run an hour this day, do some press-ups or weights the next day. But if you were to carry that out based on how you felt, today I feel happy, I'm up for it, I'm going to go for it, versus the next day, oh, I'm a bit tired, so I think I'll stay in bed, you wouldn't actually, be able to reach that goal. So it's about being, very much kind of not being driven by our emotions, by trying to be a little bit detached from that. Very financially balanced. I'll just go back again. So, those two ones together can be are the ones that we want to sort of work towards and emulate. So thinking about those in particular. So those are the money archetypes. So, I guess what you can do. So, what my suggestion would be for you to do is to really think about what's the most common issue that you have, or what's a common block that you have at the moment. So it might be you go, well, I don't know how, but every month I get to the end of the month and I've got no money left, even though I'm earning more money now. My I really want to start investing, but I'm too scared and I don't know how to. So I want you to think about, I want you to identify um, the common block that you think, the most prominent block that you think you have. And that'd be, do that. And then feel free to either put it in the comments, and I will respond to you, or you'll be on the mailing list if you've done the money quiz. So just reply to that and I will respond to you there. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And please, if you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. That means I can create more videos for you. Thank you so much and cheerio.